Now, the Metropolitan Police has confirmed that 20 fixed penalty notices will be issued today as part of its investigation into lockdown breaching parties across Whitehall and within Downing Street. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, and his government have been battered by reports of staff parties during the COVID restrictions. And the Met Police investigation into 12 separate events held across government was launched in late January. It came after an internal inquiry led by civil servant Sue Gray. The famous Sue Gray passed information to the force. Well, the Met Police have said in the last few moments that we will today initially begin to refer 20 fixed penalty notices to be issued for breaches of COVID-19 regulations. We are making every effort to progress this investigation at speed and have completed a number of assessments. However, due to the significant amount of investigative material that remains to be assessed, further referrals may be made to ACRO if the evidential threshold is made. Well, that's quite a development happening in literally the last few minutes. Joining me now to talk through this is John Rentoul, political commentator at The Independent. Welcome to the programme, John. First of all, 20 notices doesn't necessarily mean 20 people. Who do we expect these initial notices will cover?
Well, that's the big question, isn't it? I mean, will they include the Prime Minister? I think that's the most important thing that we don't yet know, because if they don't include the Prime Minister, then the question is whether they ever will, because although that statement says there will be further notices, or there may be further notices issued, it does imply that the evidential threshold has not yet been reached. So that suggests to me that if the Prime Minister is not in this first batch, then he may not get a notice. And I think that would be a huge political escape for him.
I wonder how much this process matters now. Haven't most people across the country made up their minds about Partygate? Most people think the Prime Minister broke the rules. Whether or not he actually gets a fine is almost immaterial.
Oh no, I don't think that's right. I mean, you're right. Most people have made up their minds, but I think it does make a difference whether he's found by the police to have broken the law, because I mean I think that makes the difference between this issue fading quite considerably between now and the next general election, or it still being a live issue at the next election. I think that's, I mean, there's a lot of evidence that people are still very angry about the fact that they were asked to make sacrifices and that people in government didn't seem to be sharing those sacrifices. But I think if the Prime Minister isn't served with a notice, then I think that will fade by the time of the election.
Because on the other hand, there might be the risk if no notice is served to the Prime Minister. And ultimately, we'll only know if the Prime Minister gets a notice if Downing Street tell us, although they have committed to say that if the Prime Minister himself gets a notice, they'll say, they might not necessarily say if his wife or if anyone else gets one. I suppose the question is, if the Prime Minister manages to avoid a fine, mightn't that look quite bad to people who think he's broken the rules and is getting away with it again?
Yeah, no, fair point, Tom. But I think those are people who can't be persuaded and are not going to have their minds changed. I mean, I'm thinking about the sort of middle voters, the people who are relatively sympathetic to Boris Johnson, who think that if the police say that he's broken the law, then they're not going to like it. Whereas if he gets away with it, then I don't think that's going to be so damaging for him. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I find it very difficult to understand this because I mean, I didn't lose anybody to coronavirus. I wasn't prevented from going to funerals. I wasn't prevented from seeing loved ones. So it's difficult for me to understand the depth of feeling that a lot of people have about this. But I suspect that if he's not served with a notice, then I think that's going to make quite a difference.